Good morning and welcome to Friday Morning Arcade. I am your host, Brady Keith, and joining me is my co host.
Nick Ryan. Today we will be covering Indiana Jones and the Great Circle and giving our own takes and interpretations of the game. So, Brady, what are your favorite things about this game?
Okay, so one of my favorite things about this game is the fact that it just allows you to live out this like childhood dream that you might have of like being that movie character and getting everything that you want and just going to do these cool and little fun things like going to you've always wanted to dream of like going into like pyramids and finding like lost Egyptian relics. This game allows you to do that. I mean, it's an Indiana Jones game, so obviously you get to take on that role slash myth of Indiana Jones while also being able to do it your own kind of cool and sort of fun way. So like I think that's really cool that it allows you to live out that like childhood dream you had of being this cool, awesome, well-known character. So, what's one of yours?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The immersion of kind of these movies being made into a game really hasn't been touched on since the Uncharted series and also the Tomb Raider series. So being able to kind of return to a form of that concept while also putting it behind a FPS capsule really helps this game a lot. And there's a lot of allure to it that maybe some of the other games, like I said, kind of don't have. Whereas Uncharted kind of brings out a more Mission Impossible esque style as the series goes on. This game is kind of a return to form of that from the first game, and being able to run into these temples and seeing a bunch of these ruins, and it's a really nice immersive experience that really is enhanced by the visuals and also the gameplay. So yeah, what are some of your favorite aspects of the gameplay?
Okay, so some of my favorite aspects of the gameplay. One is the beautiful scenery that this
Mhm.
game has. Like, I mean, let's talk about it. You see everything like so beautifully crisp and clear. Like the pyramids are nice. They actually look like pyramids and not like just blocks stacked on top of each other. The beautiful landscape that you get to see certain times, like heck, you one of the missions is you go in a cave. You wouldn't expect that cave to be beautiful like you would in the movie, but let me tell you, they managed to capture details on details in that cave of the moss, the flowers, the vines, everything, the light, the water reflecting off of the things. It is so beautiful in that game. So that's one of my really big upsides is how they were managed to capture the beauty of Indiana Jones and all the graphics and put it into this game. What's one of yours?
Yeah, so I completely agree with Brady here. And a lot of other things come down to, like, the weapon play. Like, I would have never expected to feel so powerful with a whip and a hat, and just adding in a bunch of these cool techniques and stuff. It really spices up the gameplay. And in a way, I think that, like you said before, like with the sceneries and the details and stuff, I would love to see this game in a VR setting, because taking that immersion that you already have and then bringing it into that kind of setting and that backdrop would be perfect. So yeah, what are your least favorite things about it? Because I know that we kind of both have similar reasonings to not really approach this game in certain ways.
Okay, so my main one that I'm going to talk about is the save system in this game. This by far has one of the worst save systems I think I've seen out of any like AAA Bethesda game. Like, let's talk about it. There's not a singular manual save option. So that is like a really big downside is like let's say you have work in like 3 hours. So you play for 2 hours and you're going to like quit and exit to save. Like you would normally do in like a normal like game. There would be that like option to save, but then you go back and do it. To save, but then you go back and do it. you're just quitting. There's no save. The only save is the auto save that this game has, which really is so unfortunate and sucks that there's not a way to save your progress. I feel like that's a really like I don't know. I don't want to say idiotic because it is a AAA Bethesda game, but it's really inconvenient is one thing. Is that there's no ability for it. So like it feels almost like a roguelike in a sense, and the way the saves work is that like you don't have like the ability to save your progress unless it auto saved. So it's kind of like a roguelike in how if you die you get like sent back. This one is just like your save progress doesn't work that well. What's one of your negatives?
Yeah, so kind of going back off of Brady here. Yeah, like the problem is that since it is a Bethesda Works, Bethesda games mainly don't have the best save builds within the industry. You look at like Doom and Doom Eternal, which their saves are fine. They're a little longer, but I mean, compared to something like Fallout, to where if you're not save scumming every 20 minutes or so, you are going to be set back so far. And the one thing that like always kind of confused me with this game is the fact that like you said, that the save system is almost like a roguelike. However, it's not marketed that way. And so that's where, my confusion stems from, like, okay, well, is it, supposed to be played like a roguelike? Are you supposed to have it at a higher difficulty? Or is it just, pure flaw? And so, yeah, I absolutely, completely agree with you. Another thing is the immersion. Even though that, like, the scenery is very immersive, the combat really isn't. The fact that you're able to kind of just swoop back into combat by picking up a hat, it just kind of feels off to me. Where Indiana Jones, which I get that the movies weren't really based in realism, the fact that, when Indiana Jones was injured, he was injured. I mean, when he was out for the count, he was out for the count. And so the fact that, like, it's this weird, like, balance between, okay, is this a power fantasy, or is this pure, like, oh, well, we just want to have some way for the player to recover back their stuff. And that's kind of where that imbalance seems very off to me. Not saying that the combat is bad, but it's just the fact of, like, between the save system and also the way that you save yourself from the save system is very odd. I want to kind of go back around with the positives. What's another positive that you have?
Oh, for me, it's this game is marketed as an FPS, and yet it doesn't play that way. It plays more like a Black Flags Assassin's Creed game, and the way that there's missions, but there's so much open worldness to it. Like if you go and look at Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you have this whole like track of missions that you have, but then there's a whole bunch of like side missions and side quests that you can go and do. And this game, it has that. It has that ability to you have the main missions, and then you have like go find this paper at this certain location, or go find this idol at this temple. So that's really one of my positives again, is the fact that if you get bored of just doing story missions over and over again, you have a whole like expansive list of missions and things you can go and collect and build off of. So I think that's a really cool. Do you have any other positives?
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback off of Brady here. One of my biggest, like, points within this game is that this game kind of reminds me of, and with like your Ubisoft reference, this reminds me of a kind of what if universe of like what if Bethesda did Far Cry. Far Cry is kind of this open world experience with a modern RPG style of mission setups, and I think that in my opinion, FPS games should really, really start implementing a open world system. We see this in Halo Infinite, where like obviously Far Cry, and so the fact that this game, as good as it is, being able to like approach it in such a way that doesn't feel like a full carbon copy of both of those titles is perfect. And so yeah, that's really all I have. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and my name is Nick Ryan.
And I'm Brady Keith, and thank you for joining us in the arcade. Signing off till next Friday.